I remember going all the way back to the beginning with Pavel, and I remember his question was, "Do you want to get stronger or do you want to lift more weight?"
What's the difference?
Um, how do I best way to do? Um, Using technique, you can lift more weight, but that doesn't necessarily mean
That you're stronger? Of course it does mean you're stronger, doesn't it? Lu Xiaoyun has the best technique. The guy's
right.
strong as hell.
He is. How do I say that question? Um,
It's an interesting point.
right.
Interesting point.
I mean, what do you say to the guy that's got all the rippling muscle that looks like Superman, and then a guy that doesn't have any of that that can outlift him?
Oh,
You know what I mean?
I think it's easy to
Right.
explain. The
Yeah.
one guy was focusing on hypertrophy,
Hypertrophy. Right.
right, which is a completely different beast,
Completely
and the
different.
other guy was focusing on strength.
Right. Trying to get the point. Trying to get from point A to point B.
Yes.
Right. And which is we're talking about that explosive speed. Just same thing with gymnasts. They have that explosive. There's explosive speed in there. There's also very slow grinding movements as well.
And I
But
think
they're
that's why they look so bulky, right? I mean, they have awesome physiques, yeah.
mhm. That strength to weight ratio is amazing,
Yeah.
and be able to hold their body in certain positions is it's mind blowing. Almost all of range now almost has no swing. It's so much strength
Wow.
related, but it's weird over the years how there's an ebb and flow. You go back to the early 30s and 20s when guys hardly swung at all and did all these strength moves, and then it graduated into swinging concepts with strength, and now it's almost pure strength. Yeah,
So
and you
so
have
it
to
goes back and forth, huh?
go back and forth, but we'll see
Interesting.
with that. But yeah, it is amazing right now. They just levitating. Yeah,
Awesome.
they look like
It's it,
flying gravity.
yeah, it's just, it's crazy. And here's you mentioned a good point. There are grinding exercises in
Right?
gymnastics, right? You mentioned.
Sure.
So here's my point why I believe hybrid is or this hybrid idea is cool because incorporating the grinds
Hmm.
gives you that aesthetic look
Absolutely.
and makes you strong as well, right?
Right.
But when it comes to the ballistics, you are riding a different horse. It's strength endurance or special endurance. So we don't focus on strength or hypertrophy. We rather focus on a type of endurance that is unique to kettlebell training,
Correct.
right? So
Correct.
two different beasts.
Hmm.
So I get it when somebody tells me, well, but the sport guys look they look thin. They're not really muscular. Well, because most of them don't do grinds. And if they do grinds, they do it in the GPP and only focused on their sport, right? They don't do GPP for the looks. They do GPP for their sport.
Right.
But back to the question that Pavel was asking, which I think is a great question. If I mean, do you want to become stronger or lift more weight? If I am able to lift more weight, of course I have to have good technique. You're right on
Right.
that point. But I can have the best technique. If I'm not as strong as Lu Xiaoyun, I can never outlift him.
True.
Right?
Good point. Hmm.
Because I always bring in the weightlifters. It's just because that's where kettlebells come from, right? It was a
Right.
poor man's sport for
Yeah.
weightlifting to a certain extent, right?
Mhm.
And this is where the moves come from. The jerk, you see the jerk with kettlebells looks similar to the jerk with a barbell.
True.
And that's why I made a video critiquing the strong first clean and jerk because it just doesn't make sense at all.
Doesn't make no hard style press doesn't make any sense to me because it doesn't match a regular. Well, uh, that press where the elbow is going laterally doesn't make any sense.
Where it goes away,
Yeah, doesn't make any sense.
I've heard somebody say they call it a scaption press. And you also do it in bodybuilding, right? Where the
Sure,
elbow
well,
goes out.
that's to build a muscle. That's to
Yeah.
create a shape.
Yeah.
You're trying to get the weight to go off of your hip straight up. It's straight up and it's straight back down. There's
Yeah.
no point in the elbow going out that way. You're going off the plane. So
What was the explanation for this? Do you
I
remember it?
I remember that's the question he posed, and that was really, really a long time ago.
Okay, yeah,
Yeah,
I understand, of
yeah.
course. Yeah, yeah.
Great question though. And
And
so
and
yeah,
and how did you answer that question?
I didn't. It was I think he that was the question he asked on what someone was intending to do. Do you want to be stronger or do you want to lift more weight? I was like, okay. But I just that question resonated. It just stayed with me forever. Um,
And how would you answer it now?
um,
I mean, does the question even make sense to you?
Not really. I do like how you said, yeah, in order to lift weight, you have to be stronger. You have to produce more force to get it there.
Most definitely, right? Even with the
But
best technique. Look at Klokov, the Russian weightlifter. That
right,
guy's a monster.
he is a monster. Monster.
This guy is next level. And
Yeah.
and are you trying to tell me that and he's also using, I mean, I'm an amateur in barbell and weightlifting. I'm not
Right.
even an amateur. I don't even do these exercises. I don't do the Oli lifts. But judging from my understanding of biomechanics to a certain extent, Klokov has great technique.
Absolutely.
You can maybe somebody can correct me if I'm wrong. And he's also hellish strong.
Very strong. He is very strong. I mean, that guy, I think he's done some standing presses or even not a jerk, but a push press, probably 300 pounds or some insane number like that.
This is
Yeah. And then a hanging clean where he will stop and then he'll clean
and then you
from,
clean it.
from the, that is amazing. That's superhuman strength to get that weight from there to there.
Exactly.
But he also, he's very flexible.
And
Have you seen
yeah,
flexibility?
yeah.
Very, it's amazing how much weight he can lift, and he's very flexible for a big dude.
See what this is teaching me. I mean, I've had a conversation with Dr. Stuart McGill,
Okay.
and one of the leading spine researchers and spine scientists. And he said, for example, a powerlifter is not very flexible because he doesn't have to be. Because his system is focused on strength. Let's take the other example. You have a ballet or yoga
Right.
teacher. Not very strong, but incredibly flexible because the body adapts to, all right, specific, what? The side principle, specific adaptations to impose demands, right? And then he shared an example. I love this example. He shared an example of a wood chopper.
Okay.
He said he was I don't know if he was counseling the guy. I don't know what it was, but he said a wood chopper, a world champion wood chopper.
Okay.
And he said this guy was imbalanced. You couldn't imagine. On one side,
On one side.
right? And yes, it makes sense. And he said this. He said it made sense for his sport.
Right.
So he was supposed to be imbalanced because, right, for the sport.
He
But
adapted that.
He adapted exactly. And now you have Klokov moving massive weights.
Massively.
And so he's the yoga and the powerlifter
Right.
in one.
Right.
Which you would say, this is not possible. Yet it is. And
Yet it
same with kettlebell sport, right? You have guys moving 64 kilogram kettlebells, double 32s.
Double 32.
Right? My body weight, 70 or maybe 80 kilograms, for 80 reps, 10 minutes straight.
Yeah.
How impossible is that? But still, the human body adapts to whatever you want it to perform.
Adapts. It absolutely adapts. And you can take this into later age. It's amazing. You could be in your 50s or 60s and still lift a decent amount of weight for a long period of time. You can maintain that strength for a long time.